And further, what if Raven, an ECW star and champion, largely regarded as having a mind cut from the Booker's mold, were given the book and total control of the ECW product and the Hall and Nash angle? We'll find out now in this special edition of Guest Booker, Booker at Heart, a series normally reserved for bookers that tonight takes a small twist. Now Raven and I head to 1996 as he prepares to book those angles involving Hall and Nash, up to and including the April pay-per-view Barely Legal. And I prepare to put up my feet and not get a word in edgewise. June 96.
June 96.
Right.
And the pay-per-view is
the pay-per-view is April.
And I'm booking as if I know there's going to be a pay-per-view in 97 and it's the first one, right?
Correct.
So I have a game plan. All right.
Okay. So let me ask you first of all let me run down the roster for everyone. It's going to come up on your screen over there, out there. As of June 96, here's who we have to work with: Axel Rotten, Beulah McGillicuddy, Big Dick, Bill Alfonso, Meanie, Brian Lee, Bubba Ray, Jericho. He leaves in August
so we're not going to use
96. We're not going to use him. Devon.
We might.
Devon, Devin Storm, Don Harris.
I came with the Dudley gimmick too.
Puerto Rican, did you?
Yes.
There you go. Francine, Hack Myers, JT Smith, Kevin Nash, who we're adding, Lady Alexandra, Little Guido, Lori Fullington, Louis Spiccoli, Mac Daddy Kane, Mikey Whipwreck, the Gangsters, the Pitbulls, RVD, Ron Harris, Sabu, Sandman, Scott Hall, Stevie Richards, Taz, Terry Gordy, Tommy Dreamer, and Too Cold. And there are a couple of people who pop up throughout. I think he comes in August.
He came right after I wrestled Gordy.
Right, Gordy comes in
July, probably.
Well, I got him there.
But the only reason Gordy's there is because Gordy came the month before Dr. Death, I think.
Right. He pops up in.
And if you said he came August, and he must have came July.
Okay.
I guess, I don't know.
Yeah. So let me ask you though, what's the company vibe at this time?
Right. Honestly, I don't even know where we're at. So I mean, you got to refresh my memory. Like, what were the angles going on?
June 96. You had the heavyweight strap.
Mm-hmm.
Shane,
the first time.
Shane had the TV.
Was this before I went to rehab?
I don't know when you went to rehab.
Well, when I lost the belt, when I no-showed a title match, and I went to rehab, and then I won it back in the barbed wire match.
So this is probably the second. This is the second, yeah.
All right.
Well, you guys are right, huh? I mean, you're building up to a pay-per-view. Is this something Paulie's told you about 9 months before the fact? Are you guys?
I don't know. Paulie,
that's been planted.
Paulie's told us so much stuff that, I bless his heart. He's a brilliant man, but well, whatever. I mean, we knew the proverbial carrot on a string was the pay-per-view, and it was hanging out there. And so, but we had no idea when, where, or if, to be honest.
But it was something that was definitely.
Well, I mean, it was always talked about for years, but I mean, it got to, for a while it got to the point it never thought it was going to happen, so.
So,
I think when we finally thought it was never going to happen is finally when it did.
When it just popped up.
That may just seem like a witty conversation. I don't know if I actually remember that or not. That was the beginning of the lost years, I think, for me. Yeah. So, all right. So, what were the main angles then? I was wrestling the Challenger of the Month, I guess.
Let me pick your brain about a couple more things. Now, the addition of these established TV stars, Hall and Nash, coming in, big names. How would you balance a locker room with, you've got guys that have been there from the groundswell, ECW. Now you got big money guys come in.
They would mark out. The boys in the ECW locker room would mark out. They weren't jaded. They weren't cynical. Paulie had taught them from the ground up that it's about a team effort. We're all a big team, and that I was really the only person who'd been around the block. I'd been quite around the block at that point. I've been half my career. Let's see, that was what, 96. So that was 8 years into a 20-year career. So, you know, I've been in the business quite some time, and I'd been to half a dozen territories, and I'd worked for Vince, and I'd worked for WCW, and I was pretty much the only one who had been places and knew how the game, you know, was played as a regular. Because all the names you mentioned that were bigger names, that are big names, either weren't big names yet, or were only in for a cup of coffee, other than Funk. Funk only just kind of came and went. Shane Douglas had been around the block too, and so besides me, so let me say the two of us, I guess. But so they all believed that, you know, they played for love of the game, and they believed in Paulie, and you know, and it was a great team effort. And I've always thought that wrestling would be much more beneficial to everybody and to the business if people looked at it as a team sport, as opposed to, you know, I mean, of course it's an individual thing, but if they had a much more, there was much more camaraderie involved, as opposed to, you know, well, I got to stab that guy in the back to get that spot. You know what I mean? You know, I think Paulie was smart. Like, you know, he'd let you know where your spot was, and, you know, and the people were, you know, if they weren't happy with their spot, Paulie would tell them why they, you know, Paulie had a way of telling you that, you know, hey, look, you're a mid, you know, I wouldn't say it like that, but you're a mid-carder, and that's where you are right now, and maybe someday you'll be higher up. I guess because, I mean, I guess he must have been able to do that because, you know, people never seem to complain, you know, about their spot with Paulie, at least not at that point, you know, in the game. He knew how to coach people. You know, he always thought he always likened himself. He didn't tell a lot of people this, I don't think, but he likened himself to Vince Lombardi, and he knew how to coach each player individually. Like, he didn't treat them all the same way. He treated everybody different. He treated me different than he would treat Shane, than he would treat Sandman, than he would treat whatever. That's another thing I think that bookers don't do, is I think they don't, you know, back in the day, the bookers would have a rapport with the crew, especially the top guys, you know, and then the top guys always had a say in their angles. Now it's just a bunch of dumb writers writing for everybody, and the problem is that, you know, nobody breaks out of a pack that way. You know, nobody can write for, you know, there's a reason top guys always became top guys, because they had a certain style and a verve and a character and a behavior of their own. You know, and what happened, I think, was the writers started writing for the mid-card guys, and it worked well because the mid-card guys are in the mid-card because they can't really, you know, because they don't really have much to break out with. And then the writers decided that, well, we can write for them, we can write for everybody, and then they started writing for everybody, and all of a sudden the top guys didn't have a say anymore, you know, and all of a sudden wrestling is what it is now, you know.
If we were to have Scott Hall and Kevin Nash come in, there was a legitimate heat between Scott and Shane, right?
Probably.
How would that have been addressed? Well, you're the booker. How would that have been addressed?
I would have sat them both down and said, you know, either slug it out now or be done with it. I would have. I mean, seriously. You know, I said, listen, you know, when I'd wait till the end of the night, wait till everybody was gone, and say, all right, you know, I'd have fucking, I don't know, a couple guys that could break it up if it got, you know, too far out of hand. And I mean, and I would say, look, if you guys want to settle like now, like men, or just fucking drop it. It's over with. You know, it passes the past, you know, and that'd be it.
What about yourself? You had the strap at the time. Would you have kept yourself
As the booker, I would continue to know.
Would you have kept yourself on TV, or would you have done the booking full time?
See, that's the problem. Is I don't think I think I could book and be on TV, but I would hate to book myself on top. But at the time, I was the best qualified, and that's what every booker thinks. But luckily, since I already was the champion, I think I can get away with saying that. But I don't know. I'd have to think about it if I take myself. I probably would take the belt off myself for the wrong reason, because I'm the booker. I wouldn't take it off for the right reason would be if I didn't deserve to carry it, and I would probably do it for the wrong reason because I was booking, which is not the smartest thing. But I don't know. I have to start booking, and then I'll have to see.
So we've established off camera that Pitbull number 2 and Shane were working together, as were the Gangsters and the Eliminators.
Now let me ask you this: Are we going with the contention that Scott Hall and Nash have just left WWE, or because I forget exactly. I should have asked you off camera, but it just dawned on me as we come back. I forget exactly, but they hadn't been off the TV for very long, had they?
No,
I mean,
not
they
at all.
just.
It was a quick thing.
So it was like a couple weeks later.
Yeah.
All right. Go with your say. I'm sorry.
Okay. No, and Dreamer was working with Brian Lee, so you wanted some of the angles that we're working as we go into.
Just wanted to know where we're at
into June.
since I don't remember. But I kind of had an idea. All right. Well, the first thing I would do is, let me think. I believe the first thing I would do is have, it's like I hate to say, but I would have to copy exactly what they did. I'd bring Hall in first. I would definitely bring Hall in first, and to set the tempo, because I don't think, if I recall correctly, Hall came in. I don't think most people didn't realize Hall and Nash had even left, from what I gather.
That was the whole thing, right?
Yeah,
It just kind of showed up on
yeah,
TV.
so, you can't. I hate to sound like I'm going to copy what Sullivan did in WCW, or whoever was the booker then, but you can't argue with that. You bring Hall in, you bring Hall in, and the first thing he says, I think, is he's got to put over the company. He's got to come, because if he doesn't, because he's a bigger star. He's a much bigger star than anybody there. Far and away bigger. And if he comes in and shits on a place, you can do it two ways. You can come in, he can shit on a place, and then get his comeuppance, but then you're not getting any value out of him, because if he gets his comeuppance, then you're not going to make any money with him. You know what I mean? You're gonna, you might draw a little bit, but he comes in and goes, you know what? I've always been the rebel. I should have been the star in WWE. I got run over by the red, white, and blue bus that Luger was driving. Not that it was Luger's fault, you know what I mean? Mm-hmm. But that's if you talk to Scott in real life, that's what he always says, is Razor got run over by the red, white, and blue bus. Because Razor was about ready to get the big push. Every time Razor was going to get the big push, something would happen. So he comes in, he's like, you know what? I'm tired of being with the establishment, because, Razor's never been in the establishment, neither Scott Hall. And, so I had to come to where the playing field is fair, where, it's not where because you don't want to say it's fake, but you don't want to say where it's not where the game isn't rigged, so to speak. Because you're not saying that the wrestling's rigged or fake. You're saying that the organization and the management is rigged or fake. You know what I mean? The opportunity is he's being held back. So I would have him come right in, but then I would have instantly I'd have somebody. So I guess I'd have to bring him in as a babyface. And I think right off the bat, I think the heel would have to come up and say, this is horseshit, which would be me. I think instantly I'd have to get up in his face, but I don't think I would get up in his face immediately like myself. I would send Stevie or the Meanie, or I'd send a Stevie and the Meanie up there, to go up there and go, listen, this is our show, and as such, Raven and we're Raven's boys, and we rule the roost here, and you want to get some TV time, you got to go through us. So of course, he pie faces one, power bombs the Meanie, or whatever he does, or the Razor's Edge is the Meanie, and we get out of the segment. Let Styles and them talk about it. I think we'd have to get a couple of different opinions on that afterwards, and we play it off like, this guy doesn't even work here. Not unlike they did with when the original Midnight Express hit, which was a Paulie angle, which I'm sure Paulie would love. When the original Midnight Express showed up on TBS against the regular Midnight Express, and with who's the manager on that?
Cornette?
No, it was Paul. Was it Paulie? You can tell me. You can say it.
Paulie and Cornette.
Was it Paulie and Cornette?
Mm-hmm.
Okay, it was Paulie and Cornette. And Cornette's going, and Jim Ross is screaming, and because Paulie shows up with the original Midnight Express, and Paul and I loved it as a kid watching it. Cross is going, my God, they don't even work for this company. So it's like, oh fuck, they don't even work here. It gives that semblance of reality, without being like, you want to have it feel realistic. It doesn't have to be real whatsoever, but it has to feel real. It has to give that, so I would have those guys get trashed, And then maybe, let me think. I'm looking at the roster here. I think maybe they'd get some words from, I think Joey Styles would say, you know what, I need to find out find out what some other people think about this. Dreamer give a little rah-rah speech, give him a little babyface rub. Because that's what he does. He's the white meat babyface. I think you go to Shane, and Shane could talk about what a dick he is, and he could, hey, let Shane shoot with it. You know what I mean? But keep it short. Pre-tape him so it's nice and short, so it doesn't go on for 6 hours.
So all interview segments surrounding what happened in previous
No, not
week
all.
with
They'd
the
be
flop.
interspersed throughout the show. You know what I mean? But with some key people, because it's a huge thing.